the sense objects. If the sense object is pleasing, he desires it, and if it is displeasing, he feels aversion for it. Suppose, monks, a man would catch 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds and tie them by a strong rope. He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal, and a monkey, and tie each by a strong rope. Having done so, he would tie the ropes together with a knot in the middle and release them. Then those 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds would each pull in the direction of its own feeding ground and domain. The snake would pull one way, thinking, "Let me enter an anthill." In other words, the snake wants to enter a hole. The crocodile would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter the water." The bird would pull another way, thinking, "Let me fly up into the sky." The dog would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter a village." The dog wants to look for food. The jackal would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter a charnel ground, a cemetery." The monkey would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter a forest." Now when these 6 animals become worn out and fatigued, they would be dominated by the one among them that was strongest. They would submit to it and come under its control. So too monks, when a monk has not developed and cultivated mindfulness directed to the body, the eye pulls in the direction of agreeable forms, and disagreeable forms are repulsive. The ear pulls in the direction of agreeable sounds, and disagreeable sounds are repulsive. The nose pulls in the direction of agreeable odors, and disagreeable odors are repulsive. The tongue pulls in the direction of agreeable tastes, and disagreeable tastes are repulsive. The body pulls in the direction of agreeable tactile objects or touch, and disagreeable tactile objects are repulsive. The mind pulls in the direction of agreeable thoughts, and disagreeable thoughts are repulsive. It is in such a way that there is non-restraint. And how, monks, is there restraint? Here, having seen a form with the eye, a monk is not intent upon a pleasing form, and not repelled by a displeasing form. He dwells, having set up mindfulness of the body with a measureless mind, and he understands as it really is that liberation by mind, liberation by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. Having heard a sound, having smelt a smell, etc., he is not intent upon a pleasing sense contact and not repelled by a displeasing one. He dwells, having set up mindfulness of the body with a measureless mind, and he understands as it really is that liberation by mind, liberation by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. It is in such a way that there is restraint. Suppose, monks, a man would catch 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds and tie them by a strong rope. He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal, and a monkey, and tie each by a strong rope. Having done so, he would bind them to a strong post or pillar. Then those 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds would each pull in the direction of its own feeding ground and domain. The snake would pull one way, thinking, "Let me enter an hill," etc. And the 6 animals pull in the 6 different directions now. Now when these 6 animals become worn out and fatigued, they would stand close to that post or pillar. They would sit down there. They would lie down there. So too monks. When a monk has developed and cultivated mindfulness directed to the body, the eye does not pull in the direction of agreeable forms, nor are disagreeable forms repulsive. The ear does not pull in the direction of agreeable sounds, nor are disagreeable sounds repulsive. The nose does not pull in the direction of agreeable odors, nor are disagreeable odors repulsive. The tongue does not pull in the direction of agreeable taste, nor are disagreeable tastes repulsive. The body does not pull in the direction of agreeable tactile objects or touch, nor are disagreeable ones repulsive. The mind does not pull in the direction of agreeable thoughts, nor are disagreeable thoughts repulsive. It is in such a way that there is restraint. A strong pose or pillar, this monks, is a designation for mindfulness directed to the body. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate mindfulness directed to the body. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus should you train yourselves. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha gives a simile to make us understand the unrestrained mind and the restrained mind. So the Buddha gives a simile of 6 animals that are caught by the hunter, and he ties a rope around the neck of each animal, and the 6 ropes he ties into a knot, and then he releases the animals, and the animals would go in 6 different directions. The bird wants to fly up the air, the monkey wants to go to the forest and climb up a tree, the snake wants to go into a hole, the crocodile wants to go into the water, the dog wants to go into town to look for food, the jackal wants to go up the hill. Here is a charnel ground. So the 6 animals are pulling in different directions, and whichever one is the strongest, it pulls, and the rest have to follow him. When he's tired, another one will take over and pull, and the others have to follow him. This is a very good simile for the working of the mind. Our mind is pulled by the 6 different sense objects. Forms want us to see, sounds want us to hear, smells want us to smell, and similarly your taste, touch, and thoughts. So whichever one is strongest at any one time, we pay attention to it. For example, now you are listening to the Dhamma talk, and it's suppose suddenly outside somebody sounds the horn, pon, so loud, your attention immediately is pulled there. So actually this is an unrestrained mind. So our attention is moving from one object to another object. And unfortunately nowadays people talk about momentary concentration. This is exactly momentary concentration. This momentary concentration is of no use at all. It's an unrestrained mind, and it's the normal mind. You don't have to practice momentary concentration. We have momentary concentration all the time. The only problem is what we are paying attention to is of no benefit. Sometimes, for example, you might be meditating and then you fall asleep. When you fall asleep, you are still mindful, but you are mindful of your thoughts, of your dreams. So, for example, if your mind strays and you start having stray thoughts, you're still mindful, but you're mindful of the stray thoughts, which is totally useless. That's why when we practice sati, sati is not mindfulness. Sati is recollection, remembering to put your attention or your mindfulness on only 4 objects, only one of 4 objects: the body, the feeling, the mind, and Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. Right? So that's the meaning of sati. Sati is remembering to put your mindfulness to these 4 things. That's why it's called recollection. Sati means recollection. If you want to use the word mindfulness, then it is a specific mindfulness. It is not general mindfulness. It is specific mindfulness directed only to 4 things. That is sati. But it's better to remember as recollection because it has to do with remembering, calling to mind these 4 things, right? So this unrestrained mind is the ordinary mind that is just momentary concentration. Your mind just goes from one object to another, one object to another. You're paying attention to one object and another. It's totally unrestrained. So the Buddha says, to restrain the mind, these 6 animals, going back to these 6 animals, to restrain these animals, the Buddha says, the hunter has to tie the 6 ropes to a stout pillar. When you tie it to a stout pillar, whichever way they want to go, they can only go around that pillar. They cannot go anywhere else. They go around the pillar until they are totally fatigued. Then they will lie down beside the pillar. They will rest beside the pillar. They can't go anywhere else. That is the way to discipline them, restrain them. Then they are totally subdued. So this simile is telling us this pillar represents mindfulness of the body. So mindfulness of the body. This body is not necessarily the physical body. It can be the breath body, like the Buddha himself practices anapanasati, a recollection of the breath. So the breath itself can be considered as a body. You pay attention to it. But probably you can consider other things, like during the Buddha's time, they practice meditation on the kasinas, like meditating on candlelight. That probably can be considered a body. And meditation on water. You just open your eyes, watch the water, see the water, and then close your eyes and open. Constantly keep seeing until the object stays with the mind. So that maybe can be considered a body also. Or you consider your physical body. Because as long as your mind is you are mindful of the physical body, the mind does not wander off. So it helps you to preserve your mindfulness. So this is the way to restrain our mind. So if we continually keep our attention fixed to one object, because here the pillar represents one object. So when we meditate now, we are supposed to focus our attention only on one object, not to go from object to object, only one object. The mind tries to run away, we bring it back to that object. It tries to run away, we bring it back to that object. Constantly do that until we are able to subdue the mind. So it will stay, when your mindfulness stays with one object, then the mind becomes unified and you attain the state of jhana. And when you attain the state of jhana, then the 5 hindrances dissolve away. And that is the purpose of meditation, to get rid of the 5 hindrances, so that you can see things clearly as they really are. So that is why in the Suttas, the type of meditation praised by the Buddha is always the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. So this is a very famous sutta, simile of the 6 animals. Okay, now I come to the last sutta in the Salayatana Samyutta, 35.248. The Buddha said, monks, suppose a sheaf of barley were set down at a crossroads. Then 6 men would come along with flails in their hands, and they would strike that sheaf of barley with the 6 flails. Then that sheaf of barley would be well struck, having been struck by the 6 flails. Then a 7th man would come along with a flail in his hand, and he would strike that sheaf of barley with the 7th flail. Thus that sheaf of barley would be struck even still more thoroughly, having been struck by the 7th flail. So here this simile says, you have this bunch of barley tied up, and then these 6 men come along with this flail. Flail is something to whip. So they whip the barley. 6 of them whip the barley, so the barley will be well struck. Then a 7th man would come along and also strike it. So too, monks, the unlearned ordinary worldling is struck in the eye by agreeable and disagreeable forms, struck in the ear by agreeable and disagreeable sounds, struck in the nose by agreeable and disagreeable odors, struck in the tongue by agreeable and disagreeable taste, struck in the body by agreeable and disagreeable tactile objects, struck in the mind by agreeable and disagreeable thoughts. If that unlearned ordinary